The Dan Sanborn Photograph Collection. Hi, I'm Luann Mims, Special Collections Librarian at the Lakeland Public Library. As you guys know, I'm very interested in local history and really happy that you asked me back to share more about our local collections. So today we're going to talk about Mr. Dan Sanborn, who was a local photographer, producer, radio show host, cable news broadcaster. Whew, he did a lot. But he donated thousands of photos to the Lakeland History Room, and these images give us a snapshot of past people, places, and events that create Lakeland's unique history. As I said, Sanborn was a prolific photographer, amassing tens of thousands of photographs in his nearly 60-year career, whether it was a local building that caught his eye or photographing an elementary school class's performance or a noted architect visiting town, such as Frank Lloyd Wright. Sanborn was there to capture the moment with his always present camera. So, who was the man behind the lens? Daniel Starr Sanborn was born in 1916 in Flushing, New York, to parents Harold McClellan Sanborn and Alice Starr Sanborn. He was born into a family that had an older sister that was 8, her name was Alice, and an older brother, Harold, or Hal, who was 4 years older. At the time of his birth, his father worked at a raincoat manufacturing plant, but soon moved his family to Miami to find better work. In 1926, they made their way to Lakeland. This is where Dad started working for the Herbert J. Drain and Son Insurance and Real Estate Sales. He's shown here highlighted in the yellow. Later on, his father served as a secretary and treasurer for the Railroad Commercial Association in the 40s. The family lived at 202 Maxwell Street for many years. Mother Alice was a teacher at John Cox Elementary School, and it's no surprise that the sister Alice grew up to become a teacher as well. Brother Hal went on to become a partner in a local grocery store called Boger. It was located on East Warren Street. Hal also dabbled in photography. We'll talk about him a little bit later as well. Dan showed an interest in photography during his high school years. He graduated from Lakeland High School in 1934. There wasn't an annual for that year, but here he is highlighted in yellow from the 1933 high school yearbook. Following graduation, he took a job at the local newspaper, the Lakeland Ledger, as a cub reporter for the newspaper. He earned a whopping $3 a week as the paper's sole reporter, covering city government, Chamber of Commerce interests, and the local crime scene. Now, he taught himself to not only take the pictures, but he taught himself how to develop them as well. He used the newspaper's airtight darkroom, which was often very hot in the summertime. He would stay cool using a fan blowing over a 50-pound block of ice. He also covered what the newspaper was doing at the time, such as this advertisement for winning a free car. His first professional photograph assignment that made Associated Press circulation was covering the funeral of former Lakeland Mayor, Florida Governor, and Senator Park Trammell, who died in 1936. He's pictured there in the oval. As a cub reporter, Sanborn was able to mature into this role, which brought forth a lot of his characteristics that would see him through the rest of his life, such as his integrity, his sense of adventure, his tenacity, and of course, his passion for the community. Before World War II, aviation was really peaking here in Lakeland. I have a whole nother story to tell you about aviation. But Dan started to do some aerial photography for local companies, which gave us kind of a bird's eye view of places such as the newly developed Florida Southern College. Or an aerial photograph of the Lakeland Yacht Club that sat on Lake Hollingsworth. In 1937, at the age of 21, he was involved in an airplane crash. The plane went down from engine failure at the corner of Edgewood and Buckingham Drives near the golf course. Dan was the cameraman, and the pilot, Russell Red Davis, both sustained injuries. Dan's was a little worse off, and he had to be hospitalized for a few days, but soon bounced back, and he never really lost his interest in aviation photography despite this incident. Now, he got a real leg up as a reporter. In March of 1940, Sanborn is credited with interviewing Henry Ford. Yes, that Henry Ford, who had stayed at the New Florida Hotel under the name of his assistant to remain anonymous. But people had seen him, and Sanborn had gotten wind of it. Mr. Ford, who was very wary of interviews, was not interested in being interviewed. But Sanborn got to Ford through his wife, Clara, who was impressed with the boy's patience and politeness. She urged her hesitant spouse to be interviewed by Sanborn. His tenacity paid off. No one had even gotten close to Ford, despite his annual excursions to Florida. Mr. Ford had a couple of Edsel dealerships here in Polk County. Now, as most young men in their early 20s do, Sanborn soon found himself engaged and married by September of 1940. He married a Polk County girl by the name of Elsa Inman Vander Hulse. They eventually had three children, son Daniel Jr. and daughters Priscilla and Suzanne. They lived on East Parker Street for many years. Then they moved to the South Florida area known as Dixieland, and they lived in several other places as well, but the family was very visible throughout the community. Now, since many members of his family were in education, Dan kind of was too by default, as he took on the job of being the school photographer for several schools in the area. Pictured here is a class from Lake Morton Elementary School, and then on the right is a photograph from the St. Joseph's School. And here's the First Baptist Church School. We have a lot of images of school children doing a number of things throughout town, but he did focus on their school time. In 1941, Sanborn left the newspaper to work for the public relations of Lodwick School of Aeronautics. Now, this was located where today's Tigertown and Joker Marchant Stadium are now. Al Lodwick brought this organization to town to start a civilian flight training in the 1940s. His earliest students were cadets with the Royal Air Force. As the United States entered the war, Lodwick became a government contracted flight school here in Lakeland, and also there was one in Avon Park. Sanborn was there to document this facility, its growth, and changes through the years. He also covered other local news as we were building up towards the war, like when the former citrus processing plants began to make amphibian tanks for the war effort. Here's a rumbling amphibian tank rolling through downtown Lakeland as photographed by Dan Sanborn. With the United States entering into the war, Sanborn joined the Navy in 1942. He worked with the Intelligence Office in Charleston, South Carolina, and in Tampa for 3 years. I'm sure he put his photography skills to work there as well. But once he returned to Polk County in 1946, Sanborn went back to work at the newspaper and he started his own freelance company where he worked as a commercial photographer, cinematographer, and advertising executive. He focused his efforts on business clients across the area, which included a number of places that are familiar and maybe some not familiar to you as well. Such as a variety of places of the various Polk County municipalities. Here's the historic Polk County Courthouse as photographed by Sanborn. He photographed local restaurants, some of which are no longer standing today. Some of his clients included bathing suit companies such as Catalina Swimwear, and he would take his models out to various locales to shoot using our beautiful backdrop here in Polk County. He also photographed beauty queens and celebrities like Frances Langford, shown here on the bicycle. He also had a keen eye for things that were in transition, such as the citrus industry. During the time that he was taking these pictures, we can look back and reflect on how those changes have occurred through the years, as well as the phosphate industry, which was quite large during Dan's career. And of course, it's taken a smaller piece of our economy now, but we welcome having these photographs to look back upon. Again, anything with Cypress Gardens. Dan was there with his camera and his team to photograph that. But he also, again, with the swimsuits, would find different locations to shoot these beautiful models. Local area sports. He shot a lot of baseball photographs, specifically spring training with the Detroit Tigers here. He also covered professional golfers that came and played at our local courses, among just a few of the sports that he covered. There was quite a lot of them. Buildings and businesses, some of which do not exist anymore, while others have made a noted change. To the left is the windmill that was down at uh, a tulip farm in Highland City. And then, of course, the beautiful Polk Theater that still is in existence today. He also covered cultural events around town, whether it was little kids learning how to play stringed instruments. There was dancing at a number of pavilions with live music and lots of celebrations, and of course, parades. Lakeland has been the scene of very many parades that Sanborn captured. We can't leave out government and, of course, politics and politicians. Here he has captured Senator Claude Pepper giving a speech in Munn Park in 1938. His lens captured everyday living in Lakeland and Polk County for decades. Here are some of the lifeguards that were at the Francis Beach Pavilion, which was located on Lake Hollingsworth, a very popular site for recreation. He also included the everyday people living here that contributed to the economy and social compositions of the communities. Whether he caught them at work or caught them at play, these documentations help us to look at how Lakeland was in that span of time that he was a photographer. I like that he captured a number of happy, kind of whimsical times, having fun with music or visiting your local soda jerk at a drugstore to get a freshly crafted soda. Inherently, he captured the essence of our community from behind the lens of the camera. 1960, Sanborn was hired at WONN AM radio, where he did a news program. He stayed there for 22 years and covered many topics. Of course, during this time was when the NASA space program was going, so he made sure to cover that and keep everyone informed in Florida. He also created a voice for one of the first in this area during the time of racial segregation to have a dedicated time for the African American community to have a related news and events program. Now, many of you that are from the Lakeland area may recall that there was a Sanborn camera shop, which was a staple in the downtown area for many years. It was owned and operated by Dan's older brother, Hal, but Dan also used this location as an office for his freelance photography work. It was located across from Munn Park near the Walgreens that was on the corner of Main Street and Tennessee Avenue. Dan also developed Lakeland's first cable news station, CATV, operated from WONN's basement. Now, despite a low key viewership and transmission range, he insisted on wearing a jacket and tie while delivering the news. During his long career, he was recognized with many journalism and media awards. For many decades, he was considered the number one news person in Polk County. He was known for his gung ho spirit and the integrity that he put into his work. He was also known to cover a 2 a.m. fire story and required all of his crew to be available at all possible hours as well. As we know, the news never rests, and he knew that people counted on him to keep them updated on events across the area. He took this very seriously. In 1992, he formally retired from active journalism and advertising, though he did retain some clients for occasional work. But he used his retirement years to travel with his family. He liked to relive a lot of childhood memories, and of course, one of his favorite passions was the railroad. So we have an expanded collection of both Dan and Hal's uh, travels, locating old railroad stations, abandoned engines, and railroad tracks. And this is helping us to document the Florida railroad history through this collection. Dan, of course, was most comfortable behind the lens, but we do have a few pictures of him in action. The one to the right, he's actually videotaping a family doing a citrus commercial for the Florida citrus industry. Before his death in 2001, he left his very valuable collection to the Special Collections of the Lakeland Public Library. Over 10,000 photographs and negatives make up his legacy, spanning this 60-year career. Over 1,000 of these items have been digitized for the online collection, and you can get to them from the library's website. This is the original library building, also known as the Clark Trammell building, that's currently housing the Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you for this opportunity to talk about one of Lakeland's historic photographers. This collection provides a snapshot into the history of our area, and you can find out more about Dan Sanborn's photographs through the digital collection at the Lakeland Public Library. You would go to our webpage and look for the Lakeland History Room, which is a filter over on the left-hand side. When you click onto that, it opens up into our landing page, and you can see where it says Our Collection. You would click on that, and you would be able to look at all of the images, or you could focus on the Dan Sanborn collection. Of those 6,000 images that we have online, over 1,000 of them are the Sanborn collection. Again, I want to thank you. If you have any questions, I would like you to direct to my telephone number down here, 863-834-4269. Give me a telephone call, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And I appreciate the opportunity to share with you our Dan Sanborn collection. Thank you.